Na bila shaka ni kaunti ya wanawake Victoria na Ayub, kuanzia gavana Susan Kihika, seneta huyo ambaye ni Tabitha Karanja, katika eneo bunge la Naivasha Jane Kihara, katika eneo bunge la Bahati Irene Njoki, katika eneo bunge la Gilgil Martha Wangare, katika eneo bunge la Njoro Charity Kathambi, mwakilishi wa kike Liza Chelule. Sijui kama kuna kaunti nyingine ambayo itaweza kushindana na kaunti ya Nakuru katika kuwachagua wanawake. Bila shaka ni jambo ambalo tutazidi tu kuliangalia wakati huu ambapo tunazidi tu kupokea matokeo kutoka maeneo mbalimbali. Vicky.
And that points, Mashi and Vicky, to how evolving the country's political culture is turning out to be. What Kenyans yearned for is when we repealed the Section 2A of the Constitution in 1991 was to have a progressive political culture, because look, we loosened the state's grip on what the Kenyan people could see, could hear, and even could read, the freedoms that came with it. And then you had political players and parties that cropped up, but you look at their performance within the establishment, and that has been underwhelming. Many Kenyans were concerned about the political class's engagement with the Kenyan people. But Nakuru City County is a projection of how Kenya's political establishment and Kenyans are evolving to be. And I therefore remain optimistic that progressively this is a point and a precursor to how Kenya generally will be post-2027 and beyond.
No, certainly. And I think also it's comforting to see that it's happening across different regions and communities. It's not just designated to one. So just to show that wave of progression across Kenya is quite encouraging. Let me quickly introduce our guests who've just joined us in studio. They've been waiting patiently. To my closest right, we have Bina Maseno, Badili Africa founder. Thank you so much for joining us. And we also have Warungu Mwangi, political analyst. Thank you, sir. Karibu sana. And joining us virtually, hopefully she'll be joining us virtually, is Ruth Bolo, chairperson of the International Relations Committee at the Young Democrat Union of Africa. Fantastic. So, Bina, let me begin with you. I know you've been following this. You have been back and forth between Bomas of Kenya and home the last couple of days. But when you follow the races and some of the results that have come through, I just want to get your initial reaction to at least the women who have made it out as winners.
Thank you so much for having me, Victoria, and the team. So it's been exciting to actually see the number of women who've been elected in this election, because, you know, we're coming from a background where Kenyan women have been underrepresented in Kenyan parliament. You know, in the last parliament, we were looking at 22% representation of women in parliament, and that is low compared to our East African neighbors, where women representation stands at least 35%. Okay. And we've been trying to push to even get to 30%, which is the bare minimum that is required. So to see actually women being elected in this particular election, and not just in the affirmative seats, right, but taking a stab actually when it comes to the gubernatorial seat, the senatorial seat, it's a big step towards achieving the two-thirds gender rule, and also inspires more women to actually run for political office. Mm-hmm. So it's also amazing to see the support that they actually receive from the citizens, because I think we're looking at the county that Mashirima was talking about, where the governor currently elect in Meru has edged out a veteran politician who's never lost an election since 1992, right? So it's impressive and definitely a step towards the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Warungu Mwangi, I come to you then. When Bina talks about representation within the context of the region, and here I presume it's the East African community, and let me just get the example of Rwanda, which has 64% women representation. That's more than even the House of Commons in the UK, which is an established and civilized democracy. Going forward, then, how do we entrench that culture in the forthcoming polls?
I remember you have given a very good case scenario of Rwanda, but remember Rwanda, the genocide had the biggest contribution. During the genocide, most of the men having died, they were demotivated politically. So that one has increased in terms of the women playing politics and the representation. On the other side, taking the Kenya scenario, remember the affirmative action seats and the women nominative seats have played a very big role. Case scenario, the governor elect for Meru, Kawira Mwangaza, recently was a woman representative. So the woman representative seat and the affirmative action seat have served as a springboard for women to get into mainstream politics. Secondly, remember women have also taken very strategic political position in this campaign. In the Azimio Raila's board, the CEO was a woman. In UDA party, Miss Veronica Maina is also a woman. In the chief agent at Bomas, deputy agent for Azimio, Caroline is also a woman. So women also have played a very key role in this campaign. And we normally say that the campaign has three aspects: strategy, numbers, and resources. And the fact that we have women seat and we have affirmative action, those seats have assisted women to get into the mainstream politics and finally competed with men in the other seats.
Bina, kwa sababu wewe kuna wakati ambapo ulisimama nadhani kwa kiti cha MCA katika kaunti hii ya Nairobi, ukiangazia jinsi kampeni zilivyokuwa wakati huo mwaka wa 2013 17 13 na ukilinganisha na huu uchaguzi ama kampeni za mwaka huu 2022 ambapo kumekuwa na ripoti mbalimbali zikitolewa kuhusiana na kwamba mazingira ya kufanya kampeni kwa wanawake ni magumu. Wewe utasemaje ukilinganisha experience yako na hizi ripoti ambazo zimekuwa zikitolewa?
I think naweza sema kumekuwa na progress kidogo, but there's still so much to do kwa sababu in 2013 nilikuwa 22 years nikitafuta kiti ya MCA. Na ukiangalia hata wakati huu most young women pia hawajaweza ku win elective seats. Na wengi wao pia hawakupatiwa hata zile party tickets. So ukiangalia pia when it comes to young women, majority of them have not made it to office in this election. So there's still so much to do, but most definitely there's progress because the space is opening up for women, because we live in a very patriarchal society where many a times even cultural norms are against women actually showing up and running for office. So the fact that women actually being accepted for their leadership capability and actually showing up and winning political seats, it's definitely a step towards the right direction. But then more needs to be done to ensure that we're not actually leaving the young women behind. Because statistics currently show that in this election, we had 16,100 candidates across all the positions, from the presidential to the MCA level. 4,000 of that were actually young people, and only approximately 2,000 were women. So it means even in the, like the incoming government, the 2/3 gender rule will still be elusive. We're not going to meet that as well. And this is against the advisory by the Chief Justice in terms of dissolving parliament, right? So even the incoming government will still be battling with that if we don't meet the 2/3 gender rule.
Warungu, kwa mtazamo wako, unadhani uchaguzi huu ndio hatua ya kwanza katika kuweza kuhakikisha utekelezwaji wa hii thuluthi mbili ya uwakilishi wa jinsia moja?
Ni vizuri tueleze wa Kenya kuwa thuluthi mbili itaweza kuwa achieved both political perspective na tunasema legal perspective. Lazima tuelewe kuwa wabunge wameshindwa kutekeleza ile kwa bunge. But kwa kisiasa ilionekana tuna make hatua kubwa sana. Na ni vizuri tuangalie historia. Hii hatua haijaanza jana ama juzi. Ilianza wakati wanawake walipatana Belgium. Ile wakati wali make agreement. Ile tukirepresentwa ama tukisimamua na the former DCJ na alikuweko Hillary Clinton. Alafu tukakuja tukitengeneza katiba kuleta ile tunasema kiti cha mwakilishi wa wanawake kwa county. Chenye nimeeleza hapo awali kuwa kimesaidia sana wanawake kuingia kwa ile tunasema mainstream politics na kuweza kucompete na ile tunasema na wanaume kwa hizi siti zingine. Alapini umeona pia tumekuwa na mwanamke wa kwanza kwa ile tunasema naibu wa running mate kwa one of the presidential candidate mwenye ako likely sana kuwin. Hiyo ndio imekuwa tofauti, si ati wanawake hawajakuwa kiweza kung'ang'ania hizi viti hapo. Unakumbuka tulikuweko na ile Masaya Ngilu, tulikuweko na Martha Karua kivaa ile 2013, but ile opportunity yenye Martha Karua amekuwa nayo imekuwa muhimu sana kwa sababu la strategy sana, kwa sababu amejiunga na mtu ama ile kambi yenye iko na ile uwezo ama iko ni front runner. So ni ukweli hii ni mwanzo, but lazima tuelewe kuwa hii 2/3 hatutaweza kuiachieve kisheria pekee, ila pia kisiasa la pia ile kuendelea tuki-empower women, na sana sana hizi viti za affirmative action zikuwe gender top up either kwa parliament, kwa parliament ikuwa National Assembly ama Senate, ama kwa zile county assembly, ama kwa hii ya women rep. Kwa sababu tukiangalia wale wanawake wengi wameweza kupata hizi seat, kuna historia in terms of hizi za women rep. Ukimwangalia Gladys Wanga, ukimwangalia Kawira Mwangaza, ukiangalia Cecil Balile juzi alikuwa nominated, hata kama amekuwa shujaa kwa hizi siasa za kawaida. So lazima uangalie na uone kuwa hizi viti pia zimewasaidia sana kuweza kujua kutumia hela kwa siasa, kuweza kujua venye siasa inapangwa kimikakati, na inawasaidia sana kupigania hizi viti za kawaida sasa na wanaume.
Naam. Vicky Ayub.
All right, so at this juncture, we're going to take a short break. And of course, we'll continue this conversation around the gender equation in this election cycle. Kenya's Choice 2022 continues after this break.